When I began sketching the finished painting, I first carefully studied the overall silhouette and basic proportions of the face. Using a B2 pencil, I applied light lines, starting with the ovals of the head and the placement of the eyes. I noted key landmarks: the line of the nose, the tilt of the lips, the position of the eyebrows, and the direction of the gaze. Next, I outlined the hair in general masses without drawing individual strands. I kept the lines soft so that I could easily adjust them with an eraser if necessary. After that, I added the outline of the shoulder and clothing, maintaining the characteristic tilt of the figure and the slight asymmetry of the pose. I kept the accents subtle, pressing lightly, so that I could outline the contours more clearly later. Having completed the construction, I checked the symmetry of the eyes and the overall composition, after which I refined the lines that would serve as the basis for coloring. The sketch turned out clean, light, and ready for coloring. Once the sketch was completely finished, I moved on to the most interesting part, painting with acrylic paints. The work followed a strict sequence: background, clothing, hair, face, small details. This allowed me to not only control the purity of the color, but also avoid any accidental smudges when working on small elements. I used 3 brushes, a fine, a medium, and a slightly larger medium. Each had its own role. I started with the background because it sets the atmosphere of the entire painting and helps define the figure. Using a large brush, I applied smooth strokes of blue and light blue, trying to maintain transitions without striving for perfect smoothness, leaving behind the painterly texture. The acrylic applied smoothly and dried quickly, allowing me to work in layers. I intentionally left slight unevenness in transparent areas to give the background a sense of airiness. Next, I moved on to the clothing. I used a medium brush and a mixture of green shades, from deep malachite to light grass green. I worked with broad brush strokes, enhancing the depth of the color through layering. I added a dark tone to the folds and highlighted the highlighted areas with a lighter layer. Acrylic allowed me to convey the transitions between tones well. After the base layer, I outlined the decorative seams and folds with a black outline, using a thin brush to maintain the stylish lines in contrast with the bright green of the fabric. The hair took longer. First, I created the general background of the hair with a large brush using a mixture of brown shades. Then, I used a medium brush to draw shadows and highlights to make the hair look lively and natural. Only then, with a thin brush, did I apply individual strands, emphasizing the direction of their movement. I varied the shades from warm chocolate to rusty red to give the hair volume and depth. The face is the most crucial stage. I worked very carefully to maintain a light and expressive look. First, I applied a base nude tone with a medium brush, smoothly distributing the paint and creating a base. Then, I added soft pinkish and peach tones, creating transitions on the cheeks and around the nose. I paid special attention to the eyes. Using a fine brush, I outlined a bright blue iris, added dark lash lines, and sharply outlined the pupil. I made the eyebrows rich and graphic in keeping with the style of the original work. I painted the lips layer by layer, first the overall pink tone, then contours and strokes emphasizing volume. Once the main areas were completed, I moved on to the details. Using a fine brush, I added the necklace, elements on the clothing, shadows around the nose and lips, refined the facial silhouette and the hairline. I drew in contour lines, enhancing the stylistic effect of the drawing that gave the work expressiveness. This step solidified the overall composition and made the painting cohesive. Finally, I went over the contrasts again, darkening where necessary, lightening where needed. The acrylic allowed me to correct and add, without leaving marks, so the final result looked neat and rich. Critical evaluation of the painting. What went well? The painting is bright and vibrant, with a distinct style, a blend of pop art and illustrative graphics. The eyes are particularly expressive. The rich blue color and contour make them the center of attention. The hair is dynamic with well-defined strands and volume. The clothing complements the background beautifully. The green and blue create a fresh, pleasant palette. What could be improved? The proportions of the nose and mouth are slightly off. The tilt is good, but the symmetry could be enhanced. The face is a bit flat, more shadows around the cheekbones and chin could be added. The contouring is too thick in places, which loses the softness of some details. The background could be varied with subtle transitions or textured accents to add depth. What to add? A subtle highlight on the hair or clothing will add even more volume to the painting. Subtle highlights on the lips and eyes will enhance the realism. Decorative elements, such as a pattern on the clothing, will add even more interest to the style. Painting style. This pop art piece features elements of comic book graphics and a subtle stylized portrait. It's perfect for those who enjoy bright colors, acrylic painting, stylized portraits, and rich contour lines. Fans of contemporary decorative art, illustration, magazine covers, and graffiti will also appreciate the piece.